Thank you very much for being here this early in the morning. I'll try to keep you sort of wake you up with a rapid run through of Mycenaean archaeology. Thanks to the organizers for allowing us to present this research. We're very happy that we're presenting this specifically at this CAA. John Bintliff gave his keynote lecture 2 days ago, in which he explained much about what he did in Boeotia, but in fact he worked also in many other areas in Greece. And he is one of the people who did foundational work in also the area that we are working in the Argive Plain. So we're very excited, John, for your comments, and slightly scared, of course, as well. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the area and the period, we're talking about the late Bronze Age in Greece. And this is a picture I stole from Wikipedia to give you a general idea of the culture area that we're discussing here. Two important sites are Mycenaean terrains, located in this area of the Peloponnese, which is often considered as the core area of the Mycenaeans. So why is this interesting, and why would anyone research this stuff? Well, it's quite easy. It is bloody spectacular. This is a picture of the citadel of Mycenae, and you can see it has these huge walls. There are burials inside with much gold and other spectacular finds. There's a palace right smack on top of this hill, and it is simply spectacular. Also, the burials from this period, some of them are so awe-inspiring that you have no idea. And this is great not only for archaeology but also for tourism. So if you're in Greece, visit this stuff. It is spectacular. And we don't only have these fantastic remains, we also know exactly who the people were who built these things. These guys. You're laughing, but this is King Agamemnon and Achilles, hero of Mycenae. And why do we know these? Through the epics of Homer. So through literary sources, we know of these people and some of the things that they did. So the wars that they went on, etc. We're not the only ones who were inspired by this, who were interested in this. And already in the 19th century, archaeological research was done in this area by Heinrich Schliemann, that you must all know probably. This is a picture of Heinrich Schliemann and his assistant or co-director Dürpfeld with some of the laborers. And as many historical people and these larger-than-life people, we know quite a lot about them and what they did. But to give you a nice neo-Marxist idea about approach about archaeology, we know so little about the workmen, about the small people. And this is not only the case for these more recent historical periods and Schliemann, but we argue that this is also the case for many parts of Mycenaean Greece and of the archaeology. So this is a bird's eye view of the Argive Plain, that core area of the Mycenaeans. And I hope you can see that there's quite a mountainous area. This is the typical Greek landscape, very mountainous, and many of these high areas quite barren and dry. And here are indicated 6 important sites or large sites from this period in the area. As you can see, they're on the edge of the mountains, and we know quite a lot about these sites. A lot of research has been done into them, but it is the area in between this plain of Argos, the Argive Plain, that we know much less about. So this is sort of the context of our research, and many scholars have claimed that this area is quite particular and that it represents an early form of urbanism, to use a loaded term. And especially that this area is really dominated by the citadels and the citadel sites. This might have been the case, but we find we're a bit uncomfortable with this idea, and we're wondering, sort of, weren't there only smaller settlements, and what's happening in the rural landscape? because there is a strong research bias that we see. Many people are really focusing on these citadels, and a geomorphological bias, as this plain is an alluvial plain, and we expect many sites to perhaps have been buried by these sediments, and therefore invisible. So, to investigate this, we ask ourselves first, what sites do we know? And we compiled a data set of all the known archaeological observations from the area. And we try to ask ourselves, what sites do we not know? So what are the blank areas on the map? And what is the reason for this? Is this an historical process? There was no one living there, or there are other reasons. This is the base map that you'll see quite a lot. A DEM of the area, which we use to calculate the river flow. It's quite a coarse resolution DEM. Using ArcGIS flow accumulation toolset, we calculated the most likely natural route of these rivers. And there are two important features that we have to take into account when thinking of the ancient late Bronze Age landscape. Coastline shift through time, throughout the Bronze Age, means that some sites came to lie a bit further away from the coast than they did in earlier history. And there's an area known as Lake Lerna, right here, which during the Bronze Age was either mostly swampy and very wet, or indeed partly still an actual lake and uninhabitable. We digitized geological maps from the area, which was a pain in the ass, as you can imagine, but it helped us to reconstruct two most important soil features of the area. Firstly, indicated by the same DEM raster area here, are the barren pre-Holocene landscapes, so no later sedimentation is known from this area. And then we have the plain area indicated in green, of which the topsoil, most of the top of all these sediments consist of colluvial and alluvial sediments, which are Holocene in date, and so most of them date from either from Neolithic up to modern times. As you can see quite clearly that these sites are indicated before. These are some important citadel sites. They are located exactly at the edge of this plain. Tiggins here seems a bit different, but it is located on a rocky outcrop, which still sticks out from this plain today. We compiled a new data set of all archaeological observations, and these are the most important sources for this. And as I mentioned, John Bintliff's PhD also summarizes a lot of the data from here. And from these literature sources, many of them overlap, of course. So the citadel of Mycenae has been described in many different sources. But we created this new data set where we talk about observations on one hand. So those are the individual observations that people have done. Sometimes this is, there is a citadel here, so very large. And in other moments it is 3 shirts in a field. And then we group them. Some of these observations appear to have been part of the same original larger settlement. So to avoid confusion, we distinguish these two terms. We have an observation on one hand, and these sites is what we grouped. Of course, between these sites there are large differences. So some sites consist of only one observation, like Dalamanara here, which are indeed a couple of sherds that were found during the construction of a well, and Argos, which we consider to be one large settlement, which consists of burials, of a domestic structure, of a citadel, etc. So there, especially if we look at the differences between these larger centers and smaller domestic sites, the amount of observations for these larger sites is 17 times higher than for smaller domestic sites. Another aspect that we looked into is their occurrence through time. So the settlement pattern changes throughout the Bronze Age. This is a graph of sites of which we have a relatively good date. So not all of them, but it gives you an idea. And importantly, the citadel sites are quite stable, so the number of citadel sites is quite stable through time, while the smaller domestic sites, such as villages or farmsteads, constitute the dynamic component of the settlement pattern of the area. Unsurprisingly, this is also related to the duration of habitation of these sites. So this graph is a very simplified view of the average duration of habitation of these sites, indicated in the amount of subphases in the Bronze Age. The take-home message is that citadels were inhabited for a very long period and nearly continuous, while domestic sites were inhabited for shorter periods usually. So, the data sets that we acquired are quite different from each other, and there are we discern 4 different manners in which observations have been done. To start here, modern construction and rescue archaeology has yielded a lot of new data, mostly in urban areas of Argos and Nafplion. Some sites are visible above ground, so some of these citadels have huge walls that you simply cannot miss, and we consider that this is the primary reason that they were originally discovered. And then there are also many observations that may not actually stick out of the ground, but they are either within these citadels, or they are in such direct proximity of them that we consider that they have been recognized because of this. And then there is a 4th category, and that is sites that have been found through survey. 2 important intensive survey projects have been carried out here. So this cluster here is the Mycenaean survey, and the Berbati Limnes survey, which will be an important one for later on. So keep that in mind. And then through extensive survey work, we have quite a number of sites that are really spread out over the landscape. But this was indeed an extensive survey work. So to summarize, many of these citadels you simply cannot miss. And of course these are very inspiring, and many people would like to investigate these, and the archaeological remains are quite spectacular, so you want to. But we recognize that there is a bias both in the research focus and the attention that has gotten, and in the visibility directly in the plane. So this is one of the main reasons that we know many of these sites. But why are some areas, and in particularly the central plain, completely empty? We know 5 observations, 5 sites. This is Lerna, Mili. They are on the very edge. They are within those alluvial sediments, but they are in such sort of shallow deposits that they were easily identified as archaeological sites and excavated. Magola is a bit of a mystery to us, to be very honest. It's hard to locate it nowadays, but it's been reported to be a tell-like site. So perhaps this was on top of a rocky outcrop or something. Then there's Dalamanara, which, as I mentioned before, is just a couple of sherds that were found during the construction of a well. And Ghania is a small domestic settlement which was found during the construction of a highway in this area. It consists of a couple of domestic structures, storage facilities, and it is located along the ancient road between Mycenae and Argos. To understand better the geomorphological context there, Eberhard Zanger put out some corings, and these are the soil profiles that he reconstructed on the basis of them. And to have a closer look at one of them, the longest soil profile he created, from the coast on this side towards Argos, we see a continuous deposition of colluvial and alluvial sediments from the early Bronze Age on until modern times. Well, this is very interesting in itself. He also looked at some soil profiles in pits that were dug for road construction, etc. And he reconstructed approximately this area here to be covered with at least 1 meter of sediment. since the Bronze Age. So these are covering that Bronze Age landscape. Obviously, when we plot our sites on top of it, it is this area which is conspicuously empty of sites. And we believe that this is indeed probably caused by the sedimentation. They are simply invisible. To quickly compare with some other areas, there are 4 survey areas that we like to focus on. Nemea and Barbati in the north, and Pylos and Laconia in the south. So roughly same periods, same culture period as it were. We notice that the site distribution is quite spread out and is not so focused on central sites. And that is, as that is one aspect of the settlement pattern. They are also characterized by a single major site and many more varying in size other domestic settlements. This is contrasted with the Argive Plain, where in the same type of pie chart here, we have many more of these centers, and we are definitely lacking a large part of the domestic settlements, the rural settlements that we see elsewhere. And in fact, many of these settlements are actually found in the survey of Barbati that I'll get back to. So, large focus on these citadels. This is why we get most archaeological information, and this is where most research has really focused on. And when this is a zoom in on the Barbati Valley, an area which is similar in geomorphological makeup as the Argive Plain itself, when it was surveyed, they found that indeed many small domestic sites, rural sites, could be identified. And looking at the date ranges of these settlements, there seems to be a pattern that towards the apex of Mycenaean occupation of the area, more and more settlements were constructed, even in areas which were beyond the prime agricultural lands, indicating that the agricultural lands were probably largely occupied for a large part. So, our suggestion is to, rather than focus on these sites and consider this completely different landscape from other similar Mycenaean sites, that there are many sites that were missing, especially those small rural settlements, and that rather than assuming that they were not there, that these are in fact invisible to us archaeologically. And that as population increased throughout the Bronze Age, we're not talking about an urbanization of this landscape, but in fact, due to an intensified agricultural program, we're talking about an effective ruralization of the Argive Plain. And with this hypothesis, and with due thanks to the ERC for funding this project, at Leiden University that we are in, the Set in Stone project led by Dr. Anne Briesbaert. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.